Hello and welcome to Airheads, a not-so-serious look at the serious business of royal rumours, gossip and gowns. I'm Tom.
And I'm Maeve.
And I have to announce that this is going to be my last episode of Airheads. Because I can finally share with you guys that I've been appointed as the royal family's new diversity tsar.
You just had such impeccable qualifications.
Yeah, I know. I mean, obviously, as a privately educated, straight white man, the Queen, I'm sure, feels that I can bring a unique perspective to the firm.
Don't worry, guys. Tom's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get into Oxford, so there's no way they'd consider me for the job. But they are going to appoint someone.
To be their diversity tsar. Is that how you say it?
I think so, yeah.
This was reported by the Mail on Sunday that the Queen is to appoint a diversity tsar to modernise the monarchy.
Finally, she's on board.
Sources say the proposed move is an acknowledgement that more needs to be done to champion minorities' rights.
So ridiculous to hear them saying things like this. But apparently it's part of a major drive encompassing Buckingham Palace, Clarence House and Kensington Palace, and aides will undertake a listen and learn exercise over the coming weeks, which will involve speaking to a range of businesses and individuals about how the monarchy can improve representation.
A royal source is quoted as saying, "This is an issue which has been taken very seriously across the households. We have the policies, procedures and programmes in place, but we haven't seen the progress we would like and accept more needs to be done. We can always improve. We're not afraid to look at new ways of approaching it. The work to do this has been underway for some time now and comes with the full support of the family." This is such bullshit.
I know.
It's so funny to me. And you know, seeing this on the front page of the Mail last weekend, it was just so desperate.
Yeah, and so transparent.
And it's impossible to take this kind of thing seriously, to be honest, because they're saying they're taking it seriously at the same time admitting that they really haven't been taking it seriously at all.
Yeah, it really sounds like basically everyone ignored any policies that might have been implemented in the royal household by saying, like, oh, we know we should have been doing better.
Also, the term tsar is so funny, and I don't understand why they're using this word to try and make it sound like more exotic or something.
Oh, it's so weird. Like, I don't know why they couldn't have said consultant or something. Why do they need
chief, like anything.
But yeah, I just think it makes the whole household look so guilty of not doing enough. And clearly, by their own admission, they knew they should have been doing better, and they didn't.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see where this goes. Like, if they hire someone, are they going to publicise who that person is? Will this person become the new non-white face of the monarchy? It's like, God help them.
Yeah, I just don't know who would want to take that on. It seems like a thankless task.
And then this weekend in the Sunday papers, we heard about a YouGov poll that asked British people, white and non-white, what they thought about the royal family and if the royal family is racist. Guess what they said?
Well, ethnic minority Britons believe the royal family is racist by a margin of 43% to 27%.
White people don't feel as strongly.
These white people do. But seriously, this person has their work cut out for them.
It seems to me to be a very transparent ploy.
Yeah, and I really suspect this is going to be much more about reassuring white people that the royal family aren't racist rather than actually trying to do the work to help people.
While they're being very transparent in these PR efforts, they are being a lot less transparent in other areas. This week, The Guardian reported that the police have been barred from searching the Queen's private estates for stolen or looted artefacts after ministers granted her a personal exemption in 2017 from a law that protects the world's cultural property.
Now, this came to light as part of The Guardian's investigation into how a process called Queen's Consent has been used to grant the Queen and Prince Charles exemptions from laws that affect everybody else in the UK.
We talked about this pretty recently.
Yeah. It was on an episode called The Embarrassment of Riches, if you want to go back and listen to it. But the basic idea is that the government has to ask the Queen's permission for Parliament to be able to debate laws that will affect her. I mean, we say has to, it's really just a convention. It's not like an actual law that they have to do it.
This particular law in question, though, is called the Cultural Property Armed Conflicts Act. And it's mainly concerned with protecting cultural artefacts in war zones from destruction. But parts of it relate to stolen or looted artefacts that have been trafficked out of those countries. So this particular act made the buying or selling of looted artefacts a criminal offence, punishable by up to 7 years in jail. And police therefore have the power to search premises if they think they're being used to store illegally obtained artefacts.
This bill contains a clause that grants an exemption to, and I quote, Her Majesty in her private capacity.
Private capacity, by the way, means it applies to her private properties, Balmoral and Sandringham.
And according to The Guardian, the decision to grant the Queen an exemption from the law was privately spelled out in a letter in February 2016 to Buckingham Palace from a private secretary working for the then Culture Secretary John Whittingdale. This private secretary explained that the bill contained measures that establish new powers of entry upon land and thereby affects the interests of the Crown. He went on that, separately we wish to ensure that the powers of Part 4 of the bill, which is the section that gives police powers to search the properties, are not exercisable in relation to Her Majesty's private estates.
Buckingham Palace and the British government are refusing to say why it was deemed necessary to give the Queen this particular exemption that prevents police from searching Balmoral and Sandringham.
A spokesperson for the Queen has dismissed any suggestion that stolen or looted artefacts were being held on the monarch's private estates, which would maybe be a little bit more believable if they weren't going to quite great lengths to stop people checking. Just take our word for it, guys.
They had a quote from the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, who gave this special dispensation, and they said, "It is incorrect to suggest that there was any direct attempt to obscure the purpose of any clause. It is common for legislation to include an exception for Her Majesty the Queen in her private capacity."
But, like, maybe it shouldn't be common? It's such, again, bullshit. Why the fuck is the Queen trying to hide all her possible stolen loot?
Well, yet again, Tom, this is an example of one rule for them and another for us.
Yeah.
And we got yet another reminder of that this week when Prince Charles and Camilla Parker-Bowles headed off to Greece.
This is so annoying because I would love to go on holiday.
Well, Tom, this wasn't a holiday. This was at the request of the British government following an invitation from Greece's Prime Minister to mark the 200th anniversary of Greece's 1821 Revolution and War of Independence. Revolution and independence being two of the least fitting words to associate with Charles, Camilla, or the monarchy.
So funny to invite members of the royal family to any kind of independence-related celebration.
Obviously, this trip was very, very boring, but it was really shocking to me that they are doing this kind of overseas travel at all. You know, we're not meant to be travelling anywhere apart from essential travel. This is clearly not fucking essential travel.
Yeah, and especially considering that Greece, like a lot of continental Europe, is apparently at risk of a third wave of the virus. So why is he going there and then coming back here? Super spreader Charles.
It does feel like an even more flagrant example of what we saw during Prince William and Kate Middleton's royal train tour. As I was saying, one rule for us and another for them. But what stood out to me the most from this trip was Camilla's face mask. She had a few different ones, but there was one that was like a fucking billboard on her face, which had giant Prince of Wales feathers on either side of her cheeks.
So funny.
It was reportedly sent to her by a member of the public, which makes me think, one, I thought you weren't meant to wear gifts, certainly not in public. And two, this is some fucking industrial strength PR on Camilla's part. I stand by my man.
Oh, it was so funny. Like, the crests are so big. It's, like, honestly an eyesore. And I kind of feel like whoever sent it to them was, like, kind of taking the piss, maybe?
I don't think so. I think the hardcore stans knew that she'd love this. Is this a precursor to a Prince of Wales face tat? Tom?
That I could get behind.
The big royal news of the week was that Prince Harry has got himself his first job.
Yeah, he's going to be the Chief Impact Officer at a Silicon Valley coaching and mental health firm called Better Up.
Yeah, and he's already earning his keep. He wrote a blog post. Maybe took some tips from Meghan there on blog posts about how excited he was to be joining Better Up. And he talks about what he's learned from the Marines about mental fitness. He talks about his experiences with his awesome Better Up coach. And he says that everyone working at Archwell will have access to this coaching service.
I didn't really know what an impact officer was going to be, so I thought it would be good to take Harry's own words from this blog post as to what he sees his role as. He says, "As Better Up's first Chief Impact Officer, my goal is to lift up critical dialogues around mental health, build supportive and compassionate communities, and foster an environment for honest and vulnerable conversations. And my hope is to help people develop their inner strength, resilience, and confidence."
Do you feel more clear on it now?
No.
Well, here's what the Wall Street Journal, who were the first to report Harry's appointment, had to say about it. Harry is expected to have input into product strategy decisions and charitable contributions, and advocate publicly on topics related to mental health. As well as that, the CEO of Better Up said Harry will have a, quote, meaningful and meaty role.
I've heard Harry has a very meaty role.
He did also reveal that Harry has been working for Better Up since January, which I thought was quite interesting timing-wise, given that that would mean that they would have been negotiating his role late last year. And it seems like they probably just announced it now because we're past that sort of 1-year annual review.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't want to say it before that time had passed, but clearly Harry had plans in place. He wasn't set on returning to being a senior working royal.
Yeah, and anyone who was kind of trying to suggest that he was like wavering and was kind of so sad about losing his military appointments that he was thinking of coming back, there was probably even less basis in those than we thought at the time.
Yeah. I would also just like to pat myself on the back for calling this.
Yeah.
Pretty much straight after it was announced that they left. I don't know if I said this on the podcast or just in one of our endless conversations about this stuff, but I said Harry is going to pull a Nick Clegg, who is the former leader of the Liberal Democrats party over here and who went on to work for Facebook.
Yeah.
And I said, I fucking bet Harry is going to get a Silicon Valley job. He is going to be a tech bro. And now his transformation is complete.
Yeah, you were spot on.
Thanks, Tom.
I don't like this.
Nor do I.
I totally understand that he needs to get a job and he needs to make money. And he needs to make a lot of money because they have high security costs and a generally high standard of living. But it's pretty much guaranteed, I think, that like any job that pays the kind of money that he's expecting is going to be adjacent to some like pretty bad shit. I do think that a mental health tech company sounds incredibly dystopian.
I was really struck by a tweet from the journalist Natalie Shore, who said, just so we're clear, Silicon Valley mental health startups absolutely should not exist. Harry taking gobs of money to raise this company's profile and attract new investors under the guise of mental health advocacy is so cynical, it's astounding.
Yeah, and I'm worried that people are just going to not really think about the Silicon Valley aspect of this job and the tech bro world of this, and just be like, oh, Harry's working for a mental health organization. Like,
yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of Sussex fans saying that this is Harry taking on more humanitarian work in line with what Princess Diana was doing, to which I'd say absolutely the fuck not.
This is not that at all.
This is a company that works with corporate clients, with Facebook, with Chevron, with Hilton.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what BetterUp is.
So according to their website, BetterUp develops high-performing cultures that fuel business growth by improving leadership behaviours and increasing employee performance. They do this by offering fitness coaching services, or in their own words, they architect impactful coaching programs that fit into the way you do business. And these services are accompanied by a people matching algorithm and also in-depth analytics for the organisations that use them.
Definitely when I first heard the title, the Chief Impact Officer, which supposedly is nicknamed a chimpo, I found it very funny because of how vague and meaningless it sounds. Like, just that word impact is a real buzzword for businesses who are in the business of bullshit. So it is a bit of a red flag.
Yeah.
Straight off.
It seems like their whole outlook is about increasing productivity for business. And I think there's something quite dangerous potentially about linking mental health to professional productivity. And it just seems very different from the way Harry has talked about mental health in the past, where it seems much more about the individual.
Absolutely. And it seems like a very Silicon Valley perspective. Not that the British perspective on mental health is positive or something to strive for, but this seems like harmful in a different way.
Yeah, like the whole website for BetterUp is full of these percentages in terms of like how much you have decreased stress versus how much you can increase revenue growth. And like, you know, we're not idiots. We do realize that this is how these kind of businesses get clients, but it's very jarring. And it's also clear that the website is targeting business owners, not employees.
Yeah. I'm disappointed. You know, I feel like Harry and Meghan have made mental health such a cornerstone of their work, their working philosophy. And it feels like the way that they generally approach mental health is in talking about their own experiences and in things people can do to help themselves. Whereas this, like that tweet said, is incredibly cynical and really seems to undermine a lot of what I think the good in the work that they have done to date by aligning themselves with this sort of corporate wellness bullshit.
Yeah, like monetizing people's mental health. It kind of makes my skin crawl.
I know, and I would have much preferred if they could have been able to earn their money through things like Netflix and the Spotify deal and be able to do this sort of mental health advocacy on their own terms.
Yeah, but that's not his only gig. On Wednesday, he was confirmed as a commissioner on the Aspen Institute's Commission on Information Disorder.
This one isn't a paid role, though.
Yeah. He's sitting on this commission alongside Catherine Murdoch, who is Rupert Murdoch's daughter-in-law.
I find this fascinating. Another tweet that struck me was one by Gillian C. York, who's a writer and activist with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, who said that Prince Harry and Rupert Murdoch's daughter-in-law are not who I'd put on a commission on disinformation, but the Aspen Institute operates in another universe.
Another universe is it, really, isn't it? Like, the Washington Post newsletter this week wondered whether Harry may have swapped one stratospheric elite universe for another, seeing as he's now kind of adorned with maybe like the business equivalent of royal titles, these kind of grandiose terms accompanied by a lot of money sometimes that don't really mean anything.
Yeah, and that he's not qualified for.
Yeah.
The kind of things you would imagine a commission like this would be looking at would be how to dismantle conspiracy theories spreading through online communities, or how to explain to an everyday reader that what they're reading is propaganda from a foreign government. Obviously, Harry has had to deal with paparazzi and tabloids for his whole life, but just because he has experienced the effects of that kind of media doesn't mean that he has any real understanding of the machinery behind it or any expertise in how to approach this problem.
Yeah, it seems like an odd choice to me. And I guess just all told this week, I was a bit like, I wish Harry had nicer jobs. Speaking of odd choices, we are brought to our quote of the week.
This was another doozy from Prince William and Kate Middleton. Recorded a message for the mental health campaign Time to Change, which aims to break down the stigma around discussions of mental health. And they did this little video message in which they thanked Time to Change for transforming attitudes and encouraging more openness around mental health in schools, communities, and the workplace. And then Kate said this.
However, the work isn't done yet, and we cannot afford to stop here. It's so important that we value our mental health just as much as we value our physical health.
And she said this with a big fuck-off grin on her face. Like she knew she didn't believe a word she was saying.
It's ridiculous. Like,
what? This is shameless to me.
Yeah, I mean, not only is it, like, just such a fucking banal thing to say, like, who works in mental health is thinking, oh, I think the work's probably mainly done. I think we could stop here, guys. And then, oh, thank God we had Kate come and tell us that actually there's still more work to be done. But yeah, also, I do not believe for 1 second that she really believes what she's saying.
Will also said, we need to keep talking, keep taking action, and continue to stand up to the stigma. To which I would say, you first, buddy.
Yeah, I've lost count of the number of times we've called him out now for really reinforcing the stigma around talking about mental health.
Particularly around his own family members.
These guys, I mean, they should really be stepping back from the mental health space for the moment.
It doesn't make any sense to me strategy-wise, because I know we talked, I think it was last week, about... It was in that Sunday Times profile that they had lots of mental health related engagements coming up over the next few weeks, and they've been long planned. They were in the diary, and it's not a response to the Oprah interview, but it just comes across fucking tone deaf.
Yeah.
Seeing and hearing this kind of stuff from them, especially with that big smile on Kate's face. It was so disingenuous.
Yeah.
And I understand that they need to keep working, in inverted commas, but they have so many other patronages and charities and causes they work with from time to time that they could focus on instead at this moment without going so ham on the mental health stuff.
Yeah, they need to do just some Princess Anne style saying hello, opening a factory.
They did do a little bit of that this week. Let's move on to our Fit for a Queen. Kate and Will visited the vaccination centre at Westminster Abbey. Can you fucking imagine getting your vaccine at Westminster Abbey? Heaven.
Yeah, that would be incredible. I just went to like a porter cabin, but I was very grateful for it, and I was treated like a king.
I'm rabidly jealous. But Westminster Abbey is, of course, Kate and Will's wedding venue, and it was notable to me that Kate wore a white outfit for this occasion. She had a Catherine Walker coat that had a scalloped edge and a lace overlay on it. It's kind of details that didn't really show up all that well in the photos, but it was a gorgeous coat and seemingly a new one as well.
It was difficult to ignore the callbacks to their wedding, her wearing white in Westminster Abbey, especially as we're coming up to the 10th anniversary of that wedding.
Yeah, and this is such a positive engagement. Like we've said before, like the royals should absolutely be used to support the government's vaccination programme, but it also doesn't hurt that they also got a lot of press coverage reminding people of the glory days about the royal wedding.
Yeah. Back when nobody thought the royal family was racist.
The Cambridges also tried to get a little bit more positive PR with a story in the Sunday Times today about how they had bought Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis each their first ponies. It's just so middle class, isn't it? It's just so relatable. Do you remember when you got your first pony?
Yeah, and it made me cry a little bit seeing these kids get theirs, because I just know exactly that feeling.
Apparently they're going to be joining the Queen on rides this summer. 2-year-old Louis is going to be galloping along there after the Queen and Prince Andrew, I'm sure. Ridiculous. Apparently one of the conditions that they would be allowed to have the ponies is that they are going to chip in and help with grooming and mucking out the stables.
That's not fucking happening. Absolutely not happening.
I would like for the next birthday portraits to be, a shot of Princess Charlotte scooping the horse shit out of her stable. That's relatable, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah. But also, in terms of Cambridge PR, in the Mirror, a source revealed that Kate has apparently written a deeply personal letter to the family of Sarah Everard, who's a woman who was abducted and killed while walking home earlier this month. And you may remember that Kate attended the vigil that was held in her honour, which later resulted in a series of brutal arrests.
Yeah, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, I think. But anyway, this royal source told the Mirror it was important for Kate to pay her respects in this way. This was a private matter to her, and she wanted to show unity with everyone else who shares these feelings. Like, they think we're fucking thick.
Yeah.
To call it a private matter and then give an exclusive on the front page of the Mirror.
They really do think
they're
that
hopeless. A separate source close to Sarah Everard's family said that the family were extremely touched to have received the letter. And Kensington Palace said it would not comment on private correspondence.
Like, if the letter brought some kind of comfort to Sarah's family, then that is great.
Of course it is.
But it's impossible to ignore the way that this letter is being used by the Cambridges, by the royal family, as a PR opportunity for Kate.
Saying this is a private matter, this is private correspondence, we won't comment on it. At the same time, getting the source straight over to the Mirror to let them know that this letter definitely exists, this very private letter exists. Yeah. It's incredibly blatant opportunism to me and feels in very poor taste, very disrespectful.
Absolutely. Like, we tried quite hard not to leap to the conclusion that Kate had hijacked Sarah Everard's vigil for her own image rehab. But these actions on top of it really, in my mind, leave very little room for doubt.
Yeah, and I did want to give Kate the benefit of the doubt when we talked about it that time, and we had a lot of messages from people saying that we were too gracious.
Yeah.
But this makes me disgusted with Kate.
Yeah.
I think this is something that'll stay with me as a moment where I just felt incredibly poor form.
Yeah.
From the Cambridges.
I agree.
And Kate specifically.
So basically we are disgusted with every member of the royal family this week.
Bad week.
Yeah, apart from our first in line.
Yeah, let's go with Meghan, who donated £10,000 to HIMA, a charity in Nottingham that serves hot meals and provides emergency food parcels to people across the city.
The donation came from funds raised for the Royal Foundation through sales of the Together cookbook that Meghan put together with the Hub Community Kitchen as part of fundraising around Grenfell.
Yeah, and the director of HIMA, Sajid Mohammed, said at first that he thought the donation was a hoax. He said, they kept emailing me and ringing me about the donation, saying it was from the Duchess of Sussex, and I just couldn't believe it. I was utterly gobsmacked, as you would be, I'm sure. But he said that the money was put towards stocking the charity's food bank, as well as purchasing equipment and providing funds for the Salam Shalom Kitchen, which is the only joint Muslim and Jewish community kitchen in the UK. So that makes a lot of sense from Meghan's perspective. It also makes a lot of sense that the funds from the Royal Foundation would go to a UK-based charity. But I still think it's a very good look for Meghan to be remaining engaged in some capacity with organisations over here, despite the fact that she's now living in California and doing a lot of work with US organisations.
Yeah, I loved that. I think we had, again, in one of our chats off air, we had been talking about, like, what would we most like to see from the Sussexes, or what do we think would be the best look for them? And definitely something we were talking about was give money to UK charities. Even if you're not a patron over here, like, it would look so good to continue supporting places in the UK. So I was delighted to see this.
Yeah, and my other tip would be to give money to other royal family members' patronages.
Yeah.
And maybe somehow we would find out the practical impact of the financial donation compared to such and such doing a Zoom call for this organisation one time. But I did want to mention this other part of this story because I felt like this was actually not as much of a good look. And I know we're saying Meghan's our first in line, but it was still a notable aspect of this story. The charity revealed that they actually received the donation back in August, but they didn't say anything about it at the time or until now. And so Jude Mohammed told the BBC, the reason we didn't go public is the trustees took a view that she was like Marmite and there could be reputational issues, people not liking our charity because they don't like her. So we decided to keep the donation secret. After the Oprah interview, we realised we're a poverty and race organisation and that we needed to show solidarity.
I couldn't believe this guy said this. It's so unprofessional.
I was very surprised. It does feel, honestly, a little bit discourteous to Meghan, but I think it's striking that it gives some insight into how some UK-based organisations feel about being associated with the Sussexes at the moment, if they felt that it could damage their reputation to even announce that they had received money from Meghan.
Yeah, that is very interesting, and it makes me wonder where they thought that ill feeling would come from and what they were in particular worried about.
Yeah, and I think, we have a lot of listeners outside the UK, so I thought it was worth mentioning that, just to give some sense of how people on the ground over here are feeling. And, just to give this guy some credit, this is a very small charity, and I can imagine they wouldn't want to take any risks.
Yeah.
And if they felt that being associated with Meghan was a risk, then, they know what's best for their charity. But it just seemed quite unusual to me.
Yeah. I did like something that came out of this kind of slightly messy statement, though, which is that they made the donation last year and we didn't hear about it till now.
Yes.
There was no one running to tell the papers that the Sussexes are making cash money donations.
Yes.
Which is very classy, I think.
Yes, I agree. Over in the States, though, Meghan's also been busy supporting another charity dealing with food poverty, in this case World Central Kitchen, which we spoke about before when they partnered with Archwell to build the 4 community relief centres. This time, however, Meghan is supporting World Central Kitchen with cake.
She baked a lemon olive oil cake using lemons from her own garden.
Of course.
And she had it delivered from California to Chicago to thank their female staffers in recognition of Women's History Month.
Sending a cake from California to Chicago is pretty wild to me.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like,
That is quite far. But it was reminiscent of when she baked the banana bread in Australia during that royal tour.
Yeah.
And also just generally reminiscent of the Tig.
Long live the Tig.
So I was very into this as a story, even if it was a little bit baffling to me that she shipped this cake over to Chicago.
And I like when we get these glimpses of Meghan, the Tig blogger. She's not gone. She's still there.
She's still in there.
I love that.
Next week, we're going to be taking the week off.
Actually this time. Unless Prince Andrew is arrested. In which case we'll come back and do an episode.
Yeah, but otherwise, we want to take a week off. When we come back, we are thinking of doing a sort of culture catch-up episode with a few various things that are very tangentially related to the royals. One of our listeners had asked us to do something on It's a Sin, the TV show.
Which we would love to talk about, but we were like, how royally relevant is this?
But also now that Harry and Meghan have hired a producer that worked on Promising Young Woman to work at Archwell.
And Promising Young Woman, directed by Emerald Fennell, who played Camilla on The Crown.
So we thought those would be two things that might be fun for us to talk about when Promising Young Woman eventually comes out over here on the 16th of April. But if there's anything else like that you guys think would be fun to hear about on the podcast that has a very tenuous link to the royal family, please let us know. And until next time, we hope you have a great week, and thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.
I don't know about you people, but I don't want to live in a world where someone else makes the world a better place, better than we do.